You know, Adam, as a kid, I had a twig, a stick, maybe a wheel, and kids these days, they got wooden swords.
They got really nice wooden swords. This is a really beautiful thing, and it actually calls me back right to my childhood. When I was a kid, I remember very specifically, I think in 1983 is when John Borman's Excalibur came out, or could it have been earlier? At any rate, in the early 80s, John Borman's great, crazy, wonderful, pulpy movie Excalibur came out. Gabriel Byrne's first film role, by the way. Oh. And Helen Mirren, early Helen Mirren role. And it is the telling of the Arthurian legend. And I came home and was so inspired by it. Oh, it's earlier than 84. It's going to be, wow, yeah, it's going to be like
Don't get yourself now.
No, and because I came home and I built a suit of armor out of roofing aluminum with my dad. And then I also made myself an Excalibur.
So what did you make your Excalibur out of?
My Excalibur was actually, like this, made of wood. I used a piece of pine lattice, which is basically that sort of crisscross that covers over everyone's basement in the 1970s and even now. I peeled a piece of that off. I sharpened it up with a plane my dad had, and then I covered it with aluminized tape and gave it a jewel at the end. Oh. And that was my Excalibur sword. I was totally blown away by how good it looked. Yeah. It looked fantastic. And then when we were at Dragon Con this year, we came by this booth of this wonderful company,
Geek Chic.
Seattle-based?
Washington-based.
Washington-based, Geek Chic, and I bought this gorgeous sword from them called the Hero Sword.
Right.
And it is the sword of my dreams. It is the physical manifestation of what 12-year-old me was attempting to do.
This company is so great. They normally make like gaming tables, board game tables, and fancy furniture.
Right.
But at conventions like Comic-Con and Dragon Con, they also bring out their armory. And they have a guy who just makes swords like this. And they were kind enough to send, they have an elven sword. I love this.
Oh, that is just beautiful. It's also a little bit of Book of Eli.
Yes, a little bit of that, yeah.
Slightly reminiscent.
Absolutely, it's a 1.5 hand sword. And then, of course, they have, they can't call it Sting, but it's a halfling sword.
It's a halfling sword. One, I tell you, I would really love to put this in a 5-axis router and actually route the Sting pattern out of it. Wouldn't that be nice?
That's why we got the unfinished one. So you could totally maybe do that in the future. That is yours, Adam.
Really?
Yes.
No way!
Absolutely. Well, making these toys your own is part of the fun.
It is totally.
And
these guys actually, I mean, there's something I love about the fact that they leave it the raw wood. It's like the manufacturing process is visible and part of the conversation between you and the piece. And that, it's like if you give a kid something that looks perfect, they don't get anything out of it except the play, which is significant. But when you give them something like this where they can see, oh, it's 1, 2, 3 pieces of wood, then they understand the structure of it, and that could actually cause them to go make one. And that to me that was my intersection with making. Yeah. And I think it's it's like the gateway drug for DIY.
Absolutely. It's like building your own lightsaber.
Yes.
So let's make
every
these.
Jedi must do.
Absolutely.
So you've got some raw parts here of the Hero Sword.
Absolutely. So they sent some raw parts. So this is what the sword actually looks like before it's finished. I think it's made of oak and cherry, and it's not too complex.
No.
Yeah, and that's slots in here. It's very much like Gandalf's sword.
Oh, that is
Gladring,
so
and that's
pretty.
Pops at the end. You want to make your own jewel. But we want to do more.
We want to do more. I have actually brought some leather out of my collection. Oh, look, this was actually, I was thinking of making an apron at some point. Okay, I'm not cutting this up because this is actually a good piece. But I brought some leather out of my collection. I thought that we could, personally, here's what I wanted to do. I wanted to wrap the handle in some leather. I wanted to illuminize the blade, and that means I'm going to use one of my favorite proppage tools, which is aluminum tape used for plumbing. You can buy it at any hardware store, and I tell you, for the last 20 years, I can think of very few higher bang for the buck prop things that have given me incredible looks. This is just a sticky back aluminum foil is what it is. But when you put it on stuff, you can actually buff it, you can wire brush it, you can get different finishes, and it makes everything look metal. I mean, you can make a mannequin look like a Terminator.
How careful is your application?
Not very careful at all, because you'll see when I put it on here, I'm going to have to put it on in several pieces, and one piece won't cover the whole front of the blade. So you'll see that it can overlap on itself and still look terrific. This is one of my favorite things, and like any kid with this can make a Nerf gun look like a really scary Men in Black kind of thing.
Wow, let's go take that in action and start on this project.
Absolutely. What are you planning to do? What do you think about
I'm
doing?
going to do the wrap.
Okay.
But I want to see what it looks like after the wrap, and I don't know if I'll do the. I like the wood.
What do you think about a jewel in the handle?
We can do that as well.
I
Yeah.
actually
If
I
you
have some jewels in
Oh,
my
yeah.
in my treasure box.
Oh, this sounds like fun. Let's get started.
Okay.
Yeah. What is that? You're
So
over here.
this is a leather lace cutter, and it's made for cutting leather lace of different widths. So it's a finger thing here for pulling, a depth gauge here for guiding your leather, and a blade. It's basically a scraper blade clamped in.
So when you were making your whip, for example, that
Yes.
was one big sheet of kangaroo hide.
It was.
And you didn't use this because you actually did that in circular
In
pattern?
concentric circles, yeah, that's right. I did not use a lace cutter for my whip making. So here is.
Have you made leather grips before? For
I
swords or guns or anything?
I have done it for a knife about a dozen years ago, but not in a long time. So there you go. There's
All
a
right.
nice bit of leather wrap, and that won't cover the whole thing, but we can cut several of these, and we can join them together with some crazy glue and
Yeah.
get going. All right, I'm going to cut some more lace here. And also, this is fairly thin leather. This actually gets easier if you're working with a thicker, like
Really?
7 or 8 ounce hide, because it goes up against the guide better, and the leather provides its own structure. It's always harder to cut a soft material than a hard material.
So the difficulty is getting the width consistent more so than getting the cut.
Exactly, and you're never going to get it perfect. You just have to resolve yourself to that. I mean, actually, when you purchase leather lace from David Morgan up in Washington, you can purchase it hand cut or machine cut.
Can you tell the difference?
Yeah, the machine cut is much more consistent.
What type of leather is this?
This is a thin cowhide. It's I think this is chrome tanned, but I'm not sure. I'm not very knowledgeable about identifying the different finishes. I know
But
that
it's just
they
a
can,
leather you can just buy at any type of supply store, craft store.
Absolutely. And in San Francisco, we are lucky enough to have an ancient institution called S.H. Frank, who has. It's unbelievable. It's a massive, probably 15,000 square foot warehouse with 16-foot ceilings, packed to the rafters with hides of every color. I've been buying from them for 20 years, 23 years, and they always have what I need. They're really cool, and yeah, I love walking in there. And they're actually about 2 blocks from here.
For every occasion.
Absolutely. And they'll sell you full hides, half hides, or they have wonderful bags of scraps up by the front. That's where this came from. I just bought a bunch of scraps because I needed a light colored, soft kit leather. I think I'm going to cut one more after this, and I think that 4 ought to be enough, but we'll see. The trick when you get tired of doing this is that you'd end up going too fast, and then you end up with big variances in the thickness and such.
How much does that appear when you're doing some weaving or wrapping?
Leather is actually really forgiving on that front. But again, it's the little mistakes you make at the beginning that will screw you the most at the end.
Propagate out?
Yeah, so the real trick is if you make sure you're not lazy in the beginning, you actually might give yourself an opportunity to be lazy later when you're tired. But it takes 3 hours to fix something that you didn't spend an extra 5 minutes getting right at the beginning.
That's an important lesson.
Yeah. A lot of these things like a lace cutter like this, you can pick this up at Tandy Leather, and there are still Tandy Leathers all over the country, and it is a terrific store. I love those guys. There is one here in San Francisco Bay Area down in Burlingame, but they have an online presence. They sell hides, they sell leather supplies. It's a wonderful place.
Is that something that you're comfortable buying online?
Well, the tools, I prefer going and seeing them up in person because you can never know,
Right.
and especially hides. But with things like exotic hides, like kangaroo hides, which I use for whip making, I don't purchase those from Tandy. I actually purchase them from David Morgan, who is the earliest purveyor of kangaroo hides in the United States.
Yeah, it's tough.
Yeah, it is actually, kangaroo hide is the most durable leather. Right, this is a thong I have, and it is impossible. You can't break it with your hands, and that's 1/4 of an inch wide.
Nope.
Yeah.
Not gonna happen.
So when you think about the fact that there's 22 strands of, actually 25 strands of this inside a normal 12-plate bullwhip,
That's how strong it is.
that's pretty strong.
Yeah.
All right, so we've got 1, 2, 3 for me, 1, 2, 3 for you, and let's see. I'm going to do a join. I'm going to do a slanted join here, and I'm going to just glue it with some crazy glue just to make my wrap easy. Now, if you were really doing leather craft work, you wouldn't use crazy glue. You'd use a contact cement like barge glue. But we are doing this quick and dirty. With barge glue, you coat both sides of the joint, let them dry. Sometimes, if for something heavy duty, you do 2 coats on each side and let them dry, and then join them together. That's how they put shoes together. The stuff is never going to let go. All right. Okay. So we got to start somewhere. So I think we're going to start at the top because that's the part you'll look at more, and it's be. So let's start in this.
Yeah. What's the pattern here we're thinking of?
Well, what I'm thinking of is to start at the center top. The top part will be a full double wrap, so I cover over
The seam here.
So yeah, it's actually, you know what? I think we actually start a little bit below that. We start here where it gets rounded, because going over that shoulder is going to be difficult. Right, and then it's just like this.
With a slight overlap.
Mm-hmm. A slight overlap. I'm overlapping by about 1/8 of an inch. However, I'm going to start with a little bit of glue there, so I don't have to worry about it unwinding.
How tight are you wrapping it?
I'm wrapping it as tight as I can. I'm putting constant pressure on it because it's going to loosen up over time, and I want it to do that as little as possible. That'll also make sure it doesn't drift as I hold on to it. And leather's fairly stretchy. Okay, I've just reached my first join.
Same here.
Which is great because I'm about 1/3 of the way down.
Your do actually has a slight angle. I like that.
It does.
Oh, that's really cool. Adam's a pro. You've done this before.
I have done things like this before. My hand is getting sore already. That already looks damn good.
That looks amazing. Wow.
There we go. Okay, I'm going a couple of extra wraps around the base here, which actually helps offset the look against the pommel really nicely. And I'm toying around with the idea of a single brass screw in there.
Huh. All right.
All right, let me go get the leather lacquer. Allow to dry for 30 minutes. Okay, I'm not going to do that just yet. All right, so now I want to talk about a jewel. It's always good when looking for jewels if you've got a treasure box handy, and I do. Let's see here.
Of course.
Okay. So the question is, what kind of jewel? Is it something like that? Something like that?
How are you going to recess the jewel? Or
I think I am going to recess the jewel. Wow, that's kind of gorgeous. Oh, wait. Oh, there's that. Nah, that's ugly. I am going to recess the jewel, but I'm thinking blue? No. Oh, yes. That's the one. Right there. That's it. Okay. So, I need a Forstner bit. Okay. That is Goldilocks right there. Okay. So, Geek Chic, I hope you guys don't mind. I'm doing such major mods on your work here. It is beautiful, beautiful stuff, but
Wow.
That right there is one of my favorite tools in my shop. It's a Forstner bit, and it drills perfectly round holes without overstressing the material you're drilling them in.
Oh, that's great.
Isn't that awesome?
I think that's what I'm gonna use for like the arcade cabinet for the buttons.
Oh yes, totally. This is what you should use.
Now it's translucent, so
It is translucent, and I want to keep it actually looking good. And if I put something up against it,
Yeah.
I'm likely to lose some of that. So I'm going to actually cover over the back side of this with some of this foil.
make it reflective.
Which is, you know, how they make cheap jewelry look reflective and good. Look at this.
Oh, it's very.
Looks all nice
yes.
and icy and stuff.
I would like it so it kind of cuts right in the middle.
Oh, okay. So it goes
Overlaps.
All right. You always have to be careful drilling soft materials because they want to grab the drill bit, and when they do, boy, will they make your life hard. Okay, go ahead and put the head in there. Yep. And then we'll do this. There you go.
Like that.
Now to seat my jewel, I'm going to use some of this stuff, which is plumber's epoxy. This is, you're familiar with this stuff.
Yes, absolutely.
But tested watchers may not be. This is effectively a two-part mixed together clay. There's an interior and an exterior. When you mix them together, they harden over a period of, depending on the stuff you buy, 5 minutes, 20 minutes, or an hour.
That's the set time.
Yeah. Before I mix the epoxy, I'm going to put on some rubber gloves.
Yep.
Epoxy tends to be great because it doesn't smell at all, but it can be a cumulative toxin, which means you don't want to get it under your fingernails. You don't want to get it into your system. It makes it harder to mix, but that is a small price to pay for your health. So just roll it out, bend it over, roll it out. It's a weird kind of mixing, but you'll know when you've got it fairly uniform because you won't see any more streaks in it.
And it comes in the tubes where we don't have to mix A and B.
Exactly. And you can buy it that way. You can buy it in cups. Douglas and Sturgis here, www.artstuff.com, sells it in big buckets where you mix the two together. But this plumber's epoxy is available at any hardware store, and it is another one of those great prop things. I've actually sculpted props out of this that were ready to paint 20 minutes later.
So you have a limited time for the set, and that's it.
My first motorcycle was a Yamaha XS600, and I did a custom Savage logo on the side of the tank in epoxy. And stick it to the bottom. And I'm pressing down to make sure it grabs the wood. Then I'm going to take my jewel. Now I'll take my gloves off so I don't get epoxy on the face of the jewel. And I'm going to just shove it in there.
Spread just a little bit.
Yeah, so I'm sure what I know that's happening inside is that the epoxy is spreading to grab this thing on a wide surface area. And also it allows it to float inside the hole that I've drilled, which is just slightly too large. And then I think it looks really, really lovely.
Yeah. Oh my goodness.
This is this is the eye of the dragon from Conan. Not the real one, but the replicant.
I like the red.
Okay. I'm just making sure I'm as centered as possible. You see how I'm putting a ton of pressure on the top of this? The more pressure, the better. You know. Okay.
Oh yeah.
Now I want to make my blade look like it's aluminum, actually look like it's metal. So I'm going to show how I use this stuff, the aluminum tape, to actually get that look.
Cover both sides. That means you're going to need 4 pieces.
Yes, exactly. So I'm going to do an overlap in the center. And I'm going long so I can trim it back. And I'm using my fingernail to rub it down and make it really nice and regular and get the air bubbles out. It's really important with this kind of thing to really let it go from one end to the other. not to try and do it all at once, because boy, you never will. All right, getting in there.
Air bubbles, kind of need a squeegee.
Yeah, you kind of need to go over it, and there's imperfections sometimes in the wood that doesn't show up. To get rid of an air bubble, you poke it in the center, and then go back over it. They will show up. They go away without much hassle. Boing. There we go. Okay, now.
So you talked about being able to finish this tape. It works really well. What's that process like?
Well, the first and foremost is to get rid of wrinkles and bubbles, and that my fingernail does a great job at. And there are some points that you're just going to have a place that can't be perfectly smooth. Sometimes using an actual implement like that can help really smooth it out. Unfortunately, I've got a weird sort of dealy bob in here, so it's not going to be perfect, but it'll be good enough. But if you want to, like, let's say you want a slightly more brushed finish, you can hit this with steel wool after the fact and get a gorgeous brushed metal finish, which is, you know, again, it's like, look at this seam that I just went over.
Yep.
It's invisible.
Yeah.
You know, it is, the two pieces lap together don't leave a very visible evidence of their marriage, as it were. And I mean, you know, this can be done on any piece of wood or plastic. You got a plastic sword, you can make it look ready for stage combat using this technique. So there's another thing to know about the aluminum tape, which is when you peel it apart and you're almost down to the end, if you pull that like that, it wants to roll back up and on itself. And once it's done that, throw it out. You're done. So what you need to do is let it go without letting go. You got to get rid of the backing without letting go of the aluminum.
There you go, 3 pieces of tape.
Right now, I'm going to give this a little bit more of a buff finish. I've got some 000 steel wool, another one of the Prop Master's key ingredients. And if I hit this with this, you'll notice it dulls it down and gives it a more uniform look and helps balance and bring it together.
Yes.
Also, you'll notice it's funny when you see things that are chrome and shiny in film. Often it's easy to make something that's too shiny in film, and it's hard to see. So in fact, when they chrome plated the Golden Idol for Raiders, they had to spray it with dulling spray
And it still
to dull it down, and it still looks super chromy. So, you know, steel being harder than aluminum is always going to give a nice buff to it. And it also actually, this hides some of the variances in the woodwork, which of course there are, because wood is a soft material, and really helps even this out.
Wow, it looks like one of those Lego swords brought full size.
Exactly. Now, I think that is a damn attractive piece.
That is awesome. The jewel really makes it wonderful. Leather wrapping. You've made it your own.
I made it my own. Now it's my own hero sword. Get yours ready. Let's fight. Yeah, I don't want to.
No, not ready for an unexpected journey, perhaps.
Perhaps. There and back again.
Well, thanks so much, Adam. And you know, Geek Chic they don't sell this stuff online. That you typically bring it to conventions.
Yes.
But we do have a special offer for Tested members. Details below, an offer to buy a hero sword for yourself if you want to make it like this.
If you make a modification of your hero sword, take a picture of it and send it to us. We want to see your mods, please. Nothing's better than watching what 5 people do with the same problem, and 20 and 40 is even better. So go ahead and get yourself a Geek Chic hero sword, mod it, and let us see what you did.
I'm Norm.
I'm Adam.
I'll see you next time.
Bye-bye.